Andrew Campanelli in the flesh, everybody.
How's it going?
It goes, man. We were chatting, and I see you're getting your coffee in. Has your
Yep.
caffeine intake during this pandemic gone up as much as mine? Because I think I've gone up at least a third of my daily intake. I usually have two, but now I'm having three every day.
I
I don't feel
I
bad
spent a lot of time drinking coffee before this, so I'm pretty. It was like I pretty much drink coffee. I wake up and drink coffee until about 5, and then I switch from coffee to wine, and then
That
and
seems
then
like a normal transition. Yeah.
yeah, that's my quarantine schedule.
I was telling you earlier, I've been personally just using the pods because
Yeah.
just more convenient. But I went and got a real espresso the other day, and there's truly no comparison for it. I even think the way the caffeine affects my body is completely different too.
I think probably so. Yeah, I never owned a pod, a Keurig or anything like
Cheap
that.
and convenient, and especially with Amazon, which is nice, is you can just say every 3 months send me 150 of them. So I'm like,
Yeah, that's great. I'm lucky I live like 4 blocks from my favorite coffee shop. And during the quarantine, they've been doing like, they don't do individual coffees anymore, but like you can go and get a growler of their
that's
iced
cool.
coffee. So I've been doing a lot.
Cold brew.
Yeah, that's the extremely
I
coffee
yeah.
stuff.
I
I
don't.
lost a feeling in my fingers the other day because I drank too much of it.
If I have too much cold brew, I just feel, I don't know. I feel like I'm incredibly vulnerable and somebody could just like take advantage of me in many ways because like my brain is racing and I'm sure my heart is beating out of its chest and everything.
Have you ever seen the scans of the different drugs, what they do to brains, and it's like this one is weed or this one's cocaine, and then it's like this one that looks like a completely torn apart spider's web. It's like
Yeah.
this is coffee.
This
It's
is
like
caffeine, which
yeah,
is, yeah, it serves its purpose, but I don't, I guess, you know what? They haven't told us that it's terrible for us yet because there's always new fad going on with something's bad for you. But I think a little bit of caffeine doesn't hurt.
I saw something a few years ago that was like, coffee is somehow linked to cancer, and
Yeah.
then I saw a study a few years later that was like coffee can prevent you from getting cancer, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, I'm good either way.
Sides of the coin. Yeah, there was some article I remember reading a few years ago that it might have been bad for your kidneys or your liver, something like that. But knock on wood, I believe I'm in pretty good health. I had some blood work done for the life insurance, which is something you normally don't think about until you know you have a new human that you're gonna have to
Yeah,
take care of.
yeah. It's not the thing that they teach you when you're studying like music industry studies that you need life insurance.
Yeah, I don't think any college courses are teaching you a lot of stuff you'll actually need out there unless it's in a specific kind of vein or sector, which is like interesting to think about how colleges are going to be after this because who knows.
Well, it's interesting. My dad, teaches at UVA, and he just finished his semester online. And it's like there's a lot of I think this is showing us there's a lot of things that like we can do online. Like and for like for some students, like this might be a better learning environment for them.
Yeah, definitely if you can just stay at your house, because I've definitely missed a ton of classes where if I could have been online sitting on my couch, I definitely would have made it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Or like kids that like elementary school kids are now also experiencing this thing like in a way it's sort of makes more sense for college or you do online classes, they have online colleges, right? But like these elementary school kids like a lot there's all kinds of different issues like feeling insecure and not wanting to be in the class with other
Yeah, all
people.
the outside elements.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like if you could just be at home, it's like for some people it's a lot better. For other people, it's like but the thing about school is that it gives you the social aspect of being
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
human.
I think if I had to, was learning some kind of like business stats class, it would definitely be better me sitting down, staring at Excel by myself. But if I'm in a creative writing class where it's subjective and stuff is getting critiqued, you're going to want to be there in the room with people.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it depends on what you're learning.
So, I've been asking everybody this question. What have you been doing for the past, what are we on? We're on day 40 something or 50 something?
Uh,
It's a Friday. It would be the Friday of Jazz Fest. We'll get into Jazz Fest after that. That seems to be like the zeitgeist. We're talking about Jazz Fest a little bit.
Seems like it. You want to see what I've been doing? This is a little, here, we'll get this one a little closer. I've been drawing circles, like a million
How
circles.
how long did that take you to make?
This one took I mean, I normally don't do stuff that's this big, but that probably took 4 or 5 hours.
I would have thought it would take a lot longer, but yeah, no, it's cool.
It's hard to, I don't know. It's like I did it over the course of a few days. I was listening to an audiobook. I've been listening to the Dark Tower series. I know you read that when we.
What do you think?
I'm on the 5th book, so I'm pretty far into it.
I think the fourth was my favorite. I can't remember the damn names. It's been so long, but I will say the ending is the only way I think it could end, and it's really interesting. It's Stephen King's Lord of the Rings / Game of Thrones, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, the 4th book was great. I loved how a lot of it was the backstory of the main character. Like, yep. It's cool. It's like a Tarantino movie in that, like,
definitely
it drops you in here and then it goes and then you get all these flashbacks, or it's just
his particular style of writing. And if you like that, like an abridged version of that is it, because it's say 2,000 pages where the Dark Tower is like 30,000. But yeah, that was, I don't think I've been more upset at a movie when they had Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey were in the remake of this. So like, this is going to be awesome. And it was so bad.
Oh, I didn't even know what this was when that came out. So I didn't see that.
Yeah, not to badmouth them, but no, that's cool. I think a lot of people are spending their time specifically with podcasts and audiobooks now that they can just go and put it in and roam. I know a lot of people drive to work listening to stuff like that, or if they're gardening or just doing whatever, you can be listening to it in painting, essentially.
I know. Jacob, one of my good friends, he has been saying, like, during the quarantine, he's been taking like at least an hour-long walk every day, and like he's been listening to a Murakami book while he does it. It's like,
there you go. It's part, you're adding new things to your routine with all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and so then the other thing that I've started doing pretty early on was I started to try and make, like, I didn't hold myself to trying to do it every day because I knew that would maybe I'd get bogged down in it, but just kind of like have an idea that I would do some little musical project.
Yeah.
And whether I'm working on something I started the other day, and each one I've named like day 8, day 18, day 26.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, if you looked in any of my Ableton or Logic files, it's just like project 1, project 7, project 35. Yeah, right. And if I actually like something, then I'll keep, so like say it's project 10, I'll just call that hang 10. I'll put some actual letters near it to be like, this is what I thought was good.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you talk about not getting bogged down and the balance required in order to not just be happy, but I think for productivity, if you're just going full throttle every day trying to knock something out, I think it definitely stifles creativity. It has for me in the past. I don't know about you.
Well, so what the things that I've noticed to me is, like, I have these, say, like, even from before this started, like in the last 6 months before that, I was making a lot more, like, when I write songs, like when I started writing songs, it would be like on a guitar, and I would have me and a guitar and like a voice memo and then I would write a song that, and then I would make it in Logic or whatever. But then as I've gotten more into like kind of making the demos, making the sounds, now I have all these like tracks, and like, I would have like sort of a more hip hop track that like wouldn't become a song. Then I'd have like a guitar song. Then whatever the case may be. Now I'm having songs that I think maybe could fit with our band a little more that are tracks, but I haven't written the top line yet. So like, there are these things that are all sitting there, and then meanwhile I have all these like day 8, day 11, day 27, 26,
consciousness.
All these things, and I feel like every day I'm like, okay, well, I could start something new, or I could try to write lyrics for this thing that I wrote in November, or I could flesh out day 19, and then I have 25 open threads,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I just like am pulled in all these different directions, and I can't be creative. I can't focus on anything because I'm just like, I feel the weight of all
Yeah.
this that's open.
I think a lot of it, at least from my approach for like some of the production stuff, is some of these guys can literally have an idea and flesh it out, or you can say, hey, make it sound like this, and they can do it instantaneously, but it's just another muscle memory, and it's just another aspect of creativity, which is, it's a blessing and a curse, because you have, anybody has this capability, right? Anybody can go on their Mac and make music, but at the same time, you're having, take a song like Old Town Road that just
Yeah.
gets thrown on SoundCloud and becomes a smash hit. So there's definitely a spectrum of it.
Well, I was talking to my older brother about this too, because he's an English teacher. He has kids, but he's also a musician. And he's been in bands and he's recording stuff. Now he's saying, I have a certain amount of time where I can be creative in my life right now
Yeah.
in music in that way. And he's like, I want to make this stuff sound better, but like I don't have the time
Yeah.
to put in to be like, it's like there's two different
No,
there's
he's
just two
he's got
different art
kids
forms.
and a job and a wife and all the
Yeah.
things that entail with that.
But there's two different art forms, right? Like you want to be able to make it sound right, but you don't want to sit there for 2 hours trying to make your acoustic guitar sound like the
Yeah.
perfect acoustic guitar sound, because then by
Yeah.
the time you start to record, you won't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah, Zach and I were on our talk. We were talking about the perils of getting stuck when a loop is like 1/32 or 64th note potentially off. Or like I'm sitting here and I'm like trying to chord out chords on my Kai Mini, and then one of the keys goes out. I'm like, oh, I think I could fudge it without that. And
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not me. It's everybody's going through it. Kind of similar to this whole COVID thing, is
Yeah.
where I told everybody I'd feel a lot more scared if it was like just our band or just a bunch of people going through this. But the fact that everybody is going through it makes me think we're all going to be okay. It's
Yeah.
just whatever the new normal is. I just hope we can eventually have it be quote unquote better than where we were.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that that's going to happen at first, but yeah, I
Yeah,
hope so.
I'm just saying down the road, we'll see.
I think that maybe not in terms of the music industry, but like in terms of just life, I think that there are a lot of things that this will show us, like that we can, that a little different way of being than like maybe we've been as a whole, as a society in the past, where it's like this, it's a forced slowdown of the likes that like we've never seen before. Because in America, like if you're not, it's like the opportunity aspect of America also means that like if you are not working, somebody else is working harder than you are. So like
Yeah.
it pushes everybody. You could be working, you could be making money, you could be doing something to to further yourself financially in the capitalist world or whatever every moment of the day, so you feel that like stress a lot of the time, but nobody's
I believe they
losing.
call it the rat race.
Yeah, but nobody's falling behind anyone else right now, and everyone has to be off.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, it's obviously people have lost jobs, people have lost loved ones. I'm not saying that this is all just like a good thing and everybody's, seeing the peaceful benefits of like, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I think that there are some things that I'm going to take over into my life. Like I've been what I was just talking about being scatterbrained between different musical ideas.
Yeah.
Um, that applies to like also I wake up, I'm like, okay, am I gonna spend an hour reading? Am I gonna do yoga? Oh no, I should just go play the drums. I should go practice this thing. Oh, well, I gotta write this song. Being unable to focus on any one thing really has become problematic in the months leading up to this for me, because I would be sort of like a paralysis of what to do.
Definitely. And not to mention a lot of the time, which I don't think people realize, is when you're on the road, you're just surrounded by people and it's sensory overload. And then when you come back and you're expected to get thrown into quote unquote normal time, where like everybody has a job and you're just kind of sitting on your couch and you could not do anything for like 5 or 6 days. I don't say with no repercussions, but like you don't even think about it. Then you're like, oh, I want to go out and be a member of society again. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely feel you on that. And it's one of the interesting things that's happening for this just feels like an extended break from tour, like the longest ever, just compounded and magnified 100-fold.
I was also thinking about, I was talking. So I have this neighbor, and he spent 48 years in Angola for an armed robbery.
Yeah, you mentioned this to me before, but yeah, go in depth about this.
He's such a good dude. He wrote in jail, and so Kat and I were walking the dog the other day, and he was out front, and we started talking to him. And Kat's a school counselor, so she's asking him like
Insightful questions.
she asked him if you could tell a kid your age that was in your situation when this happened, when you did this thing that got you sent to jail, like, and if you could tell a kid that's in this situation now something that you think they might hear, what would it be?
Great question.
And he said, it's cool to be simple. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he was like, everybody, as I'm sort of paraphrasing now, but like his idea behind it was like, everybody wants to be somebody special. Everybody wants to be rich or whatever, but that only comes from a misunderstanding that everybody is special. Every one person is special. And like, you don't need to be like a famous icon in the world. You just need to be important to your family and your loved ones, and you need to do right by them. And that is what life is about. And you can get all this beautiful kind of enjoyment out of life by being simple. And I've taken that into my I've taken that into like my workflow, basically, where it's like, it's cool to be simple. Like, if I'm reading, I'm reading. If I'm writing, if I'm working on music, I'm working on music.
Yeah,
like
being present in the moment and getting it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we as a society have a huge issue with it. And to go back to what you were saying, the fact that being simple and that everybody is special, we live in a world now that we not only cater, we dramatize, and we expect people to want to stand out and be different for better or worse. And it's allowing, like, I have friends that are teachers, and they say the most common answer that every kid wants to be now, little kids, like not preschool, but like kindergarten through like 5th grade, everybody wants to be a YouTube influencer as their dream job, or an influencer. And he explains to them, he's like, guys, you have a better chance of being in the NBA than being an influencer. And I think that it goes with what your neighbor was saying. It's like, I think that's great to get back to that simplicity time of the way it was before this, to just get out there and experience things. And that should be enough. It's not a keeping up with the Joneses, like you said, it's trying to get rich or do this. It's just being in the moment and kind of existing and taking it from there. But yeah, those are wise words.
One more thing I want to say about Ricky was that in that conversation we talked about, he was saying how when he was in jail, he taught himself to write and he taught himself to play music. And we were like, how did you teach yourself to play music? And he said he got like a beginning piano book and he drew a keyboard on cardboard.
That's awesome.
And he played in his mind, did the exercises. And eventually, after 48 years, he got out and he was like in the choir at church and the keyboard player couldn't show up. And so he had a week and he had never played an actual piano before. And he was like, I think I could do it. And like, he learned the songs in a week, but he knew the chords and the shapes, and he played at church that next weekend. So
incredible.
So I take that to say, there's no excuse to not practice. Like, he learned from scratch on cardboard. And like, I'm sitting here right next to drums. Like, I can do this. There's no excuse to not practice.
Yeah, I think another thing to talk about during this time, you mentioned practice, is that people are having the ability to practice so many different things that they didn't before. And especially like we were talking about in terms of music, like I think this is only going to create so much great stuff from artists in whatever medium out there. on top of our Earth benefiting from what's going on. So
Yeah.
I
Like,
saw a picture of like Shanghai and Mexico City, where I think in Shanghai they would actually have huge screens of the sunset, so you could actually see when it was
yeah, yeah,
happening, which is mind-boggling. But it's very China of them to
yeah,
think
right.
something like that. Or yeah, Mexico City, LA. So I think the Earth is taking a little break right now, much needed one, which is good.
Yeah. The or what was it in Venice? The canals in Venice were clear. They're always
Oh
like,
man, it hasn't been clear in like 4,000 years.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. It's wonderful.
interesting. Yeah, I I would love to see like the full gamut of all the major cities like that, and like because I'm sure every single one has gone down, because I haven't been driving that much to the point now where I'm almost like, man, it might make sense to get rid of a car because I'm not using it.
I was thinking that I mean, I hadn't driven my car. I hadn't driven my car since like 2 days after we canceled the rest of since like March 15th.
Yeah,
And my brother, has this 1986 Toyota pickup
I
that
like his pickup though. It's like a green old school pickup.
it's a cool car for sure. It sometimes doesn't start. And
That's why
so,
it's cool, man.
yeah, but then yesterday he called me and was like, yeah, my car's not starting. And so I just was like, I'm not using my car. It's just like, you can have my car for a while. And
Yeah,
basically, until Kat goes back to work, it's like, I don't need a car of my own.
yeah.
Right.
I've definitely, if the strong possibility of 2020 is a wash, there's like no reason for us to have two cars, which I could see a lot of people doing. So especially with like Uber, if anybody really needed to get anywhere, it's really
Yeah.
not that difficult.
Yeah. Right. And that was a funny thing the other day. I was somewhere and I was just like, I'm just wondering, I'm just curious if there are any Ubers right now. Because like nobody's allowed to do anything.
Yeah,
There are not. I
really.
just, yeah, I just looked to see if there was like one out in the city
Because
anywhere.
they're not, there's no flights going out right now.
Yeah,
So going to, I wonder, could you fly private, you think, right now? Because I'm
yeah,
sure
I
people
think
are
so.
flying.
Yeah, less than 8 people on the plane or whatever.
Is that we're at eight bodies 6 feet apart? That's a big private jet.
You know what though? As soon as they open it back up, if we're like not able to tour, it's like I am using that Southwest Companion pass. I'm going somewhere. I'm like I want to go to Hawaii. I don't know where I'm
Yeah,
gonna
what's on your list for we'll start, what's on your overall list and what's on your Southwest compatible list of
go.
places you want to go?
Yeah, good
Because
question.
Zach was lucky, he got in Mexico City right before they ended it, and me and my wife were thinking about going to Mexico City for like a week or whatever, and then all that energy and money and funding went to Hawaii, which is, it's just a different kind of experience. And Mexico City's close, and but yeah, please do tell.
So I want to go to. I definitely want. We wanted to go before this all happened. Our
Yep.
plan for the summer was she is like going. Her school goes on summer break right before we were supposed to play Red Rocks. So she was going to drive up to Red Rocks. Then we were gonna with the dog, and then we were gonna.
Quite a hike for people that have never done any kind of driving like that. Beautiful
Yeah,
though.
yeah. But so then we were gonna go to from there to the Grand Canyon, then drive back, drop the dog off in Oklahoma, and then we were going to go to San Francisco, Mexico, San Pancho, where Jared and Jacob and I went a few years ago.
Nice.
And that was supposed to be the plan. So aspects of that are the plan. I think that once it gets back open, but if we can't play or anything, I think we're going to try to go to Nantucket, just to be there for the summer. Yeah, and then yeah, beyond that, like I want to go to Hawaii. I really want to go to Cuba, and then
Yeah, I'd like to go to Cuba too at some point.
that's like I'd say that's my short list. There's so much on the long list.
Yeah, but who knows what Southwest will entail, or any of these airlines in the next 18 months.
So we could get some cheap flights to Italy.
Oh yeah, I noticed, like, I think I was just pulling up my app for some reason, like $29 flights in
Wow,
like
wow,
in around holidays, like the Christmas break and stuff like that.
wow.
But I I don't there's nobody's flying. Like the oil cost per barrel is the lowest it's been in maybe forever.
Yeah.
We're just in a
Great.
weird time.
No, yeah, the whole world shuts down. Well, so what have you been? Tell me what you've been doing.
Um, Obviously, like everybody, I'm working on just music and stuff and trying to be creative and um prepping for this baby to come, which not only is like mentally preparing and making a nursery and everything, but I'm also trying to be incredibly healthy, the healthiest I've ever been, to try and just, I realize like my mortality totally came into my psyche now that I'm having a kid. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to prolong that and be around as long as I can. So
Why do you think that is something that is significant to you to do? Like it seems like
mortality.
no, just like why do you think that being healthier than you've ever been uh, is important for this right now? I mean, you could have an obvious answer. I'm just curious what you would.
Um, I think it's a combination of just feeling really good, and I like to. It's almost like not necessarily a milestone. It's something I'm working towards incrementally, where I see small goals over a large span of time. And I need to be focused and engaged in stuff that is in the here and now that I can gain satisfaction and insight off. That's almost not instantaneous, but like more along the lines of that. And then there's long tail stuff that I like to do. And this is a thing where it's like, after my birthday, I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna drink or have any sugar or carbs. I'm gonna work out every day. I'm gonna like, yeah, I've gotten more sun in this amount of time that I probably have my entire adult life, to be honest. Because
Yeah,
every day I'm out there, well, anytime we're on a call, I'm walking, I'm in the backyard, just sitting, hanging out, and yeah, I don't know. It's a way for me to occupy myself too,
yeah,
because if I don't, then I go out and I start getting into trouble, which is fun every now and again. But I figure I might not ever get this time again. So,
yeah,
but it's all baby prep for most of everything.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's a good way to spend your quarantine time.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like today, I have to finish hanging some shelves and stuff like that. So
Nice.
I guess like the one down thing is I lost my music room. As you see, my guitars now live in our living
Yeah,
room
yeah, yeah.
on our TV. But
Looks good though.
no, yeah, they're getting used. They're getting used.
I mean, it's funny. It's like, if you could, I was thinking about this last night, kind of preparing for this. It's like, we met when we were at Loyola, and we were like for freshman year at Loyola, and we were doing the music industry program stuff together, and we were doing like all this stuff together, and it's just like, it's it's funny to think about now. If you could have told us then, like, you guys are gonna be sitting on video call in your houses, like, in 12 years, like talking about George having a kid and like how we're dealing with this pandemic. It's just
Yeah,
like,
it's a little. It would seem far fetched to try and figure something out like that. But I guess life is kind of funny that way, the way it shakes out.
yeah.
And yeah, I thought about it. I was like, man, maybe I would just, with all this time off, like go take some classes about
I
something
thought
I've
about
been
that
wanting
too.
to do.
I thought about that too. Having like, well, we have this subscription to this masterclass app that has like super cool things. So I like dug into.
They cover everything in
They
there.
do. Some of the things I think are for me a little too in depth. Like, I don't need 13 episodes on like on being a really creative chef because I'm not a chef. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
You
I
want
need
you want step one.
like an hour. But
Yeah.
like the music, the creative writing ones, like those ones are really, really great. Those ones are really interesting. The film ones, there's a David Lynch one that I watched a few episodes of, and like he always gets into transcendental meditation. But he is, I think that taking from different art forms and art philosophies and then applying it to whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's drawing or playing drums or playing the whirly or whatever. I think that that's really important. I think to me, being creative and staying in a creative space is about just like finding something to make you want to pull the thread a little bit
Yeah,
And
it's something that gives you a little bit of a desire to continue going for it.
yeah,
Which I think
well,
a lot of people don't realize is to get in once you're in that creative space, it's like you're in it and you want to stay there. It's getting to that place, I think, is the hardest part for a lot of people. And like I don't think anybody out there has a straight mainline stream into their creativity consciousness. I don't think that's possible. There might be maybe like Stevie Wonder or Picasso or somebody like that.
I read this. John Cage is one person. He talks about. He's like, my creativity is a faucet, and the older I get, the harder it flows, and I can just turn it on and it flows. And I learned a lot from him because his creativity is about getting away from his personal aesthetic
Yeah.
visions. And so he's setting up systems. Brian Eno does this too, but they have very kind of sort of different philosophies. But like he sets up systems that then create a musical result. And it's just a little experiment, right? And so he's doing that. And when he comes up with the result, sometimes it's super cool. Sometimes it's completely unlistenable. But
Yeah.
like it's like the point is like he's like, let me just do this little experiment today or that little experiment today.
It's interesting to think that he is breaking down the music specifically. That's his creative outlet through all these. I'm trying to think of the right word. Just repetition of not muscle memory, but going through the same avenues
Yeah.
and getting different results. Where it's like a very scientific, methodical way to break it down like that. It's interesting. It's
Yeah, yeah, it's super cool. And it's interesting because like after through reading about John Cage, it made me realize the influence that like that philosophy had on say like everyone from like the abstract expressionists to like the beat poets and like just basically all 20th century music moving forward of that had a shift in it where like Jackson Pollock's like you look at a Jackson Pollock and you're like, it looks like I could do this.
yeah,
And it's like, and it's in some ways, you're kind of right. Like anyone can throw paint onto a canvas, but nobody, not even Jasper Johns, could do that painting again
true.
because it is so, it's like the arc of gravity and the, you know what, you're using these actions to make this thing that will never be created again. So looking at it in that context, it's like, wow, this is really cool. And it talks about, it suggests this philosophy of life that like you are a unique being and that these movements that you're doing right now, nobody's done them at this place and this time in this way
Yeah.
before. And it's like, it shows like an inherent uniqueness. And it's not about like, you can paint a tree and it really looks like a tree.
Now, I don't know if you told me this and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Pollock, the essential vibe and aesthetic that he's known for is just like a very small piece of his career, right? He did a lot of different things.
I don't think that I'm the one. I don't actually know. I think that's probably right. But what he's known for is that, yeah, is
Yeah,
that
I would say it'd be like you sucked up a bunch of paint in a straw and just shot it out onto a,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
would actually be really cool and fun. So,
It's cool because it's about the action of the artist and not about the representation that is
yeah,
on the canvas.
yeah,
And like that idea, John Cage did talk about how his to him art is how you use your time while you're alive. So like
it's a really interesting way to put it.
it can be going to the grocery store. Like it can be just like saying hi to your neighbors. It can be making music. It could be painting. But like it's just how you spend your time as a human. And so to create these sort of peaceful environments, there's music, there's art, there's whatever it is that can create or create another kind of reaction in you. But it's about this like this use of your time. And so in that way, I think that I can see how it would translate to the action painting.
Yeah. I heard this interesting quote where it actually totally ties in what you're saying. It's that art is used to decorate space while music is used to decorate time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've been saying Jasper Johns when I mean Jackson Pollock. I don't know.
Okay.
uh, yes, art decorates space and music decorates time. I love that. Yeah, it's so accurate, and it's really important. I've been listening to. I have this record of sort of like it's like Japanese ambient music from the '80s that Light in the Attic Records put out. Um,
Interesting. Was that just like you found that at the record store
I
randomly and
Euclid,
snagged it? Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Were you
Euclid.
searching for something like that specifically for like samples maybe or something like that?
Yes and no. I bought another Lefty at Euclid Records. He kind of knows what I like, and so if I go in there for something, he'll be like, "You should check this out," and I'm like, "What is this?" and
Yeah.
I've never heard of this, and he's like, "You'll like it," and so I just buy it. But they had put out a compilation. Light in the Attic put out a compilation with it was sort of like there's a movement in Japan in the late 60s that was sort of like rubber soul folk Beatles inspired. And
Okay.
so there's a lot of songs that are in that style that they have that are super cool. So I got that. And then this was like the next compilation they put out. And it's this ambient music that it's called environmental music because it's
Huh.
made for your environment. It's made to set your environment. And it was a movement in the 80s because like I guess it was all these people, the big hustle and bustle of city life and the rat race of like the booming 80s.
Mhm.
And you're going to work, coming home on the subway, and you're in apartments, and everything is just right on top of you. But then it was made to like put this on, and it's like this serene. You just
Would open your existence up.
it sets the tone of your environment, and like that is something that I think has been really interesting about this quarantine is that not only do we have all this time and that was like not planned for, so people are making music, they're being creative, like you said, they're able to work on stuff that they haven't really worked on enough to like implement it into their playing,
Mhm.
and now there's enough time to do that, to like to work on something very new.
Yeah.
And I've noticed amongst, like I just started kind of naturally doing it, but I've noticed, Justin Lucas, who is a collaborator of ours for the people that don't know, and P Morano and all that. We were kind of sending some stuff around to each other, and everybody independently was making this almost like spaghetti western, like Ennio Morricone music.
Yeah.
And thinking how it's interesting because it's like we're all cooped up at our house, and now it seems like everybody I know is independently just making this like wide open desert space music. It's
Yeah.
like,
I
like
guess when you have the time to separate your existence is kind of just like sprawling right now and spread
yeah.
out. So yeah, I think the creative juices could flow that way for sure.
I also think it's like when you feel like when you don't have all that much time to sit down and like write, you don't want to be like, maybe I'll make like a theme to a 70s spaghetti western
Yeah.
movie that is just in my own mind. And you're like, maybe I should work on a song for our next record. You
Yeah.
know,
No, I know
so
you.
like you the time to do something that's like there's no outlet for it. I'm not trying to get it used in a movie or anything. Like that'd be cool, but like I'm just having fun being creative in a
Little
different,
passion project.
yeah, just like trying to peak my creativity to keep myself, you know, growing and evolving in different ways.
Have you been listening to anything else specifically?
I listened to Brothers Karamazov recently, which is, you mean musically or?
Whatever. Yeah.
Let's see, I listened to Brothers Karamazov, which I loved. I could spend a whole hour talking about that, but just suffice to say, I thought it was really, I love that book because it's about three brothers that each have differing viewpoints uh, from like Russian Orthodox to sort of like just a hedonist to like a socialist, and they're all coming to a head at around the like late 1800s in Russia, and there's a plot, there's a murder, there's all this stuff, but like the great thing about the book is these conversations between people with opposing viewpoints and how one person could hold both sides of the argument so clearly in his head and write it from this character and write it from that character. I love
Yeah,
that.
no, that's interesting. Not only storytelling, but to be able to go in depth with characters like that. Yeah, interesting.
I think it's important. Like I think that's what, whether you're a songwriter, novelist, journalist, whatever. I think that's like what we're doing, what we do. He put the entire society into like one book, the movement of like this coming up against this and like where it's going, put it into one book. And we're doing little snapshots of that. I think anyone as an
Yeah.
artist. I've been listening to the new Fiona Apple record a lot.
Yeah, Zach said he was checking that out as well.
Have you checked that out at all?
I haven't yet, but it's definitely on my list of things to deep dive into.
I remember when we were on tour with Jamie like last year, 2 years ago, he was telling me that Fiona, he was like, she set up these percussion tables and like she plays the drums. He was like, you should hear the beats she's making. Like, it's so cool. I was like, oh, I didn't know she played the drums. She's like, she's not really playing the drums like a traditional drummer would. She just like sets the stuff up and hits what she wants to hear at that time. It's
Yeah.
like, that is, I thought that was such a cool way to think about any instrument, because we get so invested, rightfully so, in technique and in the way that it's that like you can, the way you can hold the sticks to make yourself be able to play faster, like the
Yeah,
actual
it's like the nuance of the science behind it.
right. But then when you go to the other side and you're just like hit the thing that you want to hear at the time you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like, all right, that's really simple.
When someone's like, how did you do that? It's just like, I just did it. I don't know. It just came out like that. Yeah.
Just the thing. Well, and it's fine because it is like, well, I mean, obviously music is a language, but it is like that. It's like, why do you use that word instead of another word? Why does your perspective have you answer that question this way or that way? Like, there's so many. Kat and I were talking about this last night. Like, like the question we were talking about in terms of kids answering the question, but like a kid, you ask a kid like, "Who am I?" or anyone, who are you? Who am I? Like, there's so many ways that you could say, I'm a 33-year-old, white male that lives in New Orleans and I play the drums. Or you could be like, I'm a person who thinks about this, or I'm like there's so many.
It's a deep question.
Yeah, but like it says
There's no right or wrong answers. It's all subjective perception at that point.
It just says something about you, whether you think about your demographic information or whether you think about your like spiritual information, or you think, like there's so many ways that like just even in the general lane where your mind goes.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing.
I should make you do a haiku of that. Who are you?
Oh man.
That sounds hard.
My mom would be my mom writes a daily haiku.
She's a haiku master. You remember the syllabic breakdown of that? Is it 575? 575. Yeah. It's just very Japanese.
Who am I today?
Yeah.
The world may never know me.
There you go.
I am happy boy.
Yeah, that's all you need. Speaking of happy and happier times, I talked to everybody about it so far. Is just because right now we'd be in the second Friday of Jazz Fest. Yeah. If you have any specific Jazz Fest moments or memories, whether it's with us or with artists you've seen or like shows outside of Jazz Fest that you want to enlighten everybody on, because I've been asking everybody the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Jazz Fest is just my favorite time of year, as I'm sure a lot of people.
Yeah, especially when the weather's nice.
And like, I think back to like when we first started going to Jazz Fest, and like, we were working the shows, like
me and Mike spoke about this in depth, actually. Yeah.
I was talking to Pat and Matt, my college roommates, about. And he was thinking of, Pat was like, remember when we like loaded onto the riverboat? It's like, he's like, we would like, I would work the festival, leave the festival, drive to the riverboat, load all the gear on, then like go do something else to meet the boat when it came back and load off. And like, it's so much better to play. But like, we were just trying to get
different ways to hustle Jazz Fest if you want to, in that sense.
but we were just trying to get in, you know? And like, it's when I think about Jazz Fest, it's hard not to think about that context of Jazz Fest too. Like,
Interesting.
my entire experience with Jazz Fest is working the shows, but then also playing at the festival, obviously. I'm trying to, well, let's just start here. I'm gonna say my favorite, my most, not favorite, my most memorable day we played Jazz Fest, like year. I think mine was, I mean, it's not fair
Yeah,
to,
there's no right or wrong.
it's not,
I think Zach said his was when we headlined Gentilly, which was the
yeah,
last one. I think mine, I said just it was the first one because it was the first time, but there's no right or wrong.
right. No, I know. I was thinking about the time that we played right before My Morning Jacket.
Yeah, that was
Um,
fun. I think that was 3 years ago,
yeah,
4 years ago.
yeah, 3 or 4 years ago.
All right,
Like,
can we go reverse chronological? How did we go? We went
Honey Gentilly.
we headline, and then the year before was before KG Elephant, or was that
Yes,
okay? And then the year before that was Tim and Dave, and the year before that was,
My Morning Jacket.
and that then it's starting to get a little blurry.
Uh, then it's
Which
like
is a blessing to be able to say that. So
yeah, then it's like the late '90s or something. I don't know.
yeah,
But
the late '90s and the early '10s.
yeah, but we have. Oh, there was one where we played like, it was maybe our second one. Was we played like 1 or 2 slots before Dr. John, and that was a really memorable one too, because I remember just like seeing him in the flesh and seeing him play and being on the stage as he walked by, after we played. And then he got out there, and this actually is in the song Stand Up, is he got out there and he was singing and dancing, and he was like, he was in, had the cane, he was late in his late 70s, and he was getting down all the way down to the stage. And so that's the line in Stand Up that Dave wrote, the stand up if you're out in the crowd, get down and make the doctor proud. It's talking about Dr. John
There
and
you
Jazz.
go.
Yeah,
And this is his first Jazz Fest since his passing. So obviously there was going to be big tributes and musical celebrations. And I think the actual Jazz Fest poster this year, which I have a couple, they're not hung up, but like I'm gonna definitely get this one because this is one will be hung up, and it's him. Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
say again.
It's Dr. John
Yeah,
on the poster.
I think it's. I'm gonna have to pull it up so I can actually show you, but I think he's from one of those quintessential like uptown or Esplanade houses, and he's like walking through the strolling through the town or something like that. But yeah, it's a very Jazz Fest. If you know what a Jazz Fest poster looks like, it's really fitting.
The only one that I have is actually from the first year that we played, and it's Alan and a similar kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's like, if the only 2 Jazz Fest posters I have are Dr. John and Alan, I think I'm doing okay.
I actually in the corner over there, I have our Frenchie that with the first year we had done.
Oh yeah, that was great. Well, I want to talk about, so outside of the festival,
yeah,
I have a few lifetime favorite shows as well.
There you go.
And I want to know yours too. God, now that I'm talking about it, it's just, there are all so many. There was the year that Snarky Puppy was playing, like they were recording their Family Dinner Volume 2. And now that I'm speaking about it out loud, yeah, that was definitely Jazz Fest. I was thinking whether it was Mardi Gras Jazz Fest. It was definitely Jazz Fest. But they would do these shows where, like, at the Maple Leaf until like 5 a.m., like all the
like pop-up shows
from all over the world. Yeah, we're playing, like, doing this like percussion stuff that's like, we don't, it's like,
we normally wouldn't get stuff like that on like a regular day, let alone Jazz Fest.
Yeah, like it's just different world percussion. Then the next night I was at the Blue Nile, like the Blue Nile, Sean Martin.
Yeah, Sean Martin and Corey Henry and Spud and Charlie Hunter was there, and Jacob Collier and the people in Nowhere before, like, I really even know who any of these people were.
I met all of them the next day because I went to go to the family dinner recording at Esplanade Studios. I met all those people the next day, and like little did I know I'd be listening to all those people and know them very well in the next few years, but not know them personally, know their music, um, but the yeah those that show at the Blue Nile that night I remember so well. It was like one of the funkiest, just like good time. No, like some of the best musicians in the world, but like no pretension. Like,
No,
I mean, like
definitely not.
just straight good time. It was so fun. And then the Ghost Note show at the Music Box last year, and the Weedy show at the Music Box 2 years ago, where he brought all his like his dudes from Africa that are other percussion players like him, sort
Yeah.
of 100 generations back their family
Isn't
name.
it Weedy Ram in the Hands of Time? I think what it's called, which is,
Yeah,
do you want to maybe, because you've actually performed at the Music Box, if you want to explain and elaborate on just how that operation exists and what they do and what people could expect to see a show there? Because I'm going record saying now I want us to do one. I think it would be cool. I'd like to practice before, but please tell
you
us.
would have to practice. It's interesting. So I've thought a lot about this, and I've not talked to anybody else in the band about it. So it's good that we can have this
World
conversation.
exclusive.
Yeah. So let's just start out with the Music Box. The Music Box is down here in down the Bywater by what's called the end of the world by the canal, and it's basically like a big park. It looks like a playground, but you know, instead of like a swing set, it's like it's a giant windmill thing that spins around, and you can control like the tone that it makes. So it's like you're playing the houses, the big structures. There's like a giant front porch, like 2 stories, and you can go in there and you can slide the door like these sliding doors here. If you slide that, but there'd be like a bass string on top, so you hit that and slide it, and it's like hooked up to a sub. So there's all kinds of there's percussion all over. There's a drum set made out of trash. So like trash cans and car pieces, and so it's like this idea. It's this idea that you can just be creative and make music, and you can everything is set up to on loop pedals too, so you can loop the stuff and set it all together, and it really is an endlessly creative space, but we would need to practice because
Yeah, it's just very different from our normally orchestrated, planned out set.
you really in order to do it well. And I'm fortunate that I have been involved in various different projects that I've played there, so I've seen it in a bunch of different avenues. Like there was an Animal Collective show there, and they basically like set up and put lights in the trees, but like played mostly their normal instruments just like in the middle of this space. But the space to to be used, I think to really take advantage of the space, you need to use the houses, and can be a challenge to orchestrate.
Oh,
Like it
yeah,
might be easier to write something for those things.
definitely. Then reharmonize and reimagine and change
Yeah.
arrangements on stuff that's pretty concrete,
And
especially when you're you're at the mercy of whatever sounds can be produced on site without
I,
having to bring like because anybody could just bring in a ton of keyboards and
right.
run tracks and figure it out.
I think that there's a way after doing it a lot, after going over there a lot, and I live close to it, so I can. I've been. They started. It's a nonprofit, so they started a docent program where during their open hours they'll have people that have played there a lot kind of be there to show people how it works and whatever. So I've gotten to go in there and mess around with it a lot. So I can now see a vision for how we would use that space to do our songs and to do our stuff. But it would take all of us going in there and committing to the space.
Yeah,
You
very
know,
cool. Very, and one I guess the last thing I'll ask you is what are you looking most forward to when things are quote unquote back to normal?
oh boy.
Any personally, it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be. It can be
yeah,
simple. It can be a simple answer.
no. I just, yeah, just seeing people. I think just like I'm missing like I think that I'm missing in-person community. I've been missing that.
Yeah,
But I do think that it's been cool to maybe reestablish some connections that there was no reason for them to have been severed. Like
Yeah,
not severed.
I know. I 100% know what you're saying.
Like I hadn't talked to my college roommates together on FaceTime ever.
Yeah.
And we did that the other day. And like they both have kids, and it's just like, why don't we do this more?
Yeah, it's that connection that we always had the possibility and capability of doing. But now, yeah, I've noticed I'm in a more active group text than I was before, whether it's like family or friends or even acquaintances at this point. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's connecting us together, just not physically.
Yeah, I just hope that this feeling of appreciating one another um remains when like because it's not just about why didn't we do that. It's like, oh, I could call Pat and Matt today, but like, Matt's at work, Pat's doing this. Like,
Yeah. Life is
find
getting in the
time.
way.
Yeah, find time is much more difficult when when not everybody's home. But
Yeah.
like, I hope that as a society we can take some of these things into what becomes normal after this.
Awesome. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a fitting way to end this particular interview. And
Yeah.
I'm sure when we do the next one, maybe some new things will be abreast and we'll be able to do it
Hopefully.
more in person. Maybe we can
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
do it in a room together.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah,
This is a great idea, George. Thank you for setting this
yeah,
up.
I'm excited to do this, and I'll mention now. Eventually, I'd like to move it to people beyond the band related to our world.
Yeah, I
And
was thinking that. I was thinking that just the other day. I just a quick little anecdote.
yeah,
I Alvin called me out of the just FaceTime me out of the blue, which is like,
Alvin Ford is probably the number one go-to drummer in town right now.
yeah, yeah,
Really, my good friend too.
yeah. He's a great friend, but like, not we wouldn't like just
FaceTime normally.
yeah, we would text while we were on the road, or we would sometimes talk, but like we were just like he was just like at home with his kids, and we were FaceTiming, and what ended up happening was like the kind of conversation that this could be. Like we talked about
Definitely,
in
yeah.
the studio with Alan, or we talked about this or that, and like it was just like a really natural, fun conversation. When you then like shortly after that, you brought up this idea, and I was thinking like it'd be great to get Alvin on there too. So
Yeah, I
I,
think I'll say for me too. I'm sorry to cut you off.
oh, you're
There's
good.
something about being able to see the person that lets me engage. And I don't know if it's a body language thing, but I just feel like without personally having the visual medium on the phone call, I'm also kind of stuck here stationary. When I'm on the phone, I roam. Like I'm
Yeah,
on our calls, I go 2-3 miles down the road, then the call ends. I'm like, shit, I have to walk back home now. So
yeah,
it's a more focused thing where and you get to see the person, which is great. And it's the closest thing to actually being in the room with them. So,
yeah, right. It's awesome.
but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I think we should do this, and I think we should expand it.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for more, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
All right, later.